I love when today's video topic is brought forward by one of you guys. One of you asked, Kaelan, sex on a first date, good or bad? Well, as with most things in life, I don't think there's necessarily an easy answer. And as I say many times on this channel, really it all comes down to perspective. So today, we're gonna go through the pluses and minuses of getting down with the business the first time you meet someone. So hey there, if we haven't met before, my name is Kaelan. I am an ecstatic spiritual life coach. I work with people around the world to help them come home to themselves and integrate their spiritual, sexual, meditative, queer, masculine, whatever it is going on for them sort of lives. How do we live in an authentic and meaningful way? Those are the questions we explore here on Ecstatic Self. I've written a couple books, and if you would like to, feel free to join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time here for a live meditation class. So, sex on a first date. Well, I'm going to offer my perspective, and I just want to always put a little caveat out there to say, whatever you are feeling, whatever you are experiencing, whatever you believe, you are entitled to those feelings. There is nothing objectively right or wrong here. This really all comes down to perspective. If you're somebody who is a born-again Christian, sex on a first date is going to be a clear no-no. If you're somebody who has had lots of sexual partners, then sex on a first date is probably going to happen. There is nothing right or wrong. It really comes down to where you are. So let's start off with arguing why people say maybe you shouldn't have sex on a first date. And really it comes down to clouded judgment. Because once you start to get intimate with someone in an emotional or physical capacity, you start to usually develop a feeling of connection, possibly even affection or love, intimacy, belonging with these people. And there's actually a term for what happens when you start to fall for someone. That term is called limerence, and it's an actual chemical thing that happens in your brain. It is like being high on a substance, and limerence can happen for quite a bit of time. Scientists say limerence can actually be experienced for up to 3 years, which means if you fall hard and heavy for someone right away and you start experiencing the hormones and the pheromones and the gooey sort of love sort of feelings that come up when you start to get intimate with somebody, all that judgment can go out the window because you're in a lavender haze, rose-colored glasses, all those expressions that we hear about our perception being altered when we're in love. So this puts a point in favor of the column of hold off a minute, don't have sex right away so that you can get to know this person better and discern whether or not they're the right person for you. I think that this is a good moment to introduce a brief interlude and share a little anecdote, a little story about how me and my husband met. Now, we did end up having sex on our first date. However, we met online via OkCupid, which was a dating site. And we spent a full week, as I was traveling abroad when he messaged me, getting to know each other via in-app messaging, and then text messaging, and then phone calls, and then video chats. So before we even met in person, I had a really good idea of who this individual was. I had already started to develop feelings for them before we met, but that was largely due because of the heartfelt connection that we were sharing. It was actually really cute because I went directly from the airport to our first date, and originally my husband had said, hey, why don't you just come over to my place, I'll cook dinner for us. And I was the one who was like, no, I don't want to rush into things, let's go meet at a neutral location, let's go out for dinner. And then quite literally 30 minutes into dinner, I'm whipping my dick out under the table and waving at him and telling him to take a look, and then inviting myself back to his place where we did then have sex. So, that went out the window. But my point being is there was a period of time before we got physical where I got to discern, how do we communicate? How are our shared values? What are our goals in life? What do I think about you as a human being? We had quite a substantial amount of time connecting in that week prior to getting to know one another. And I think this brings up a really important point, which is when we consider the question of how quickly do you get physically intimate with somebody, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a life partner? Are you looking for a short-term partner, a boyfriend, somebody for now? Are you looking for somebody to just spend time with and hang out with? Or are you looking for somebody who you just, want something casual and easily sexual with? Because those things are going to require different approaches. And as I come back to many times on this YouTube channel, really everything in life boils down to awareness. What do I want? What am I feeling? What am I trying to get out of this interaction? What are my expectations? What have my experiences been prior? Where am I? And how does that influence how I move forward? So for example, if you're looking for a long-term partner, it isn't just about physical connection and chemistry. I mean, that stuff matters. Of course, it's very important. But as we saw, this chemical state of being in love only lasts for a period of time. After that wanes, you're left with, what kind of individual are they? Do we communicate well together? Are we mutually supportive of each other's interests and goals? Do we have things in common? Do we find each other beautiful and attractive apart from just the pheromones and the initial impulse that we feel when we connect with this person? Do I enjoy spending time with this person? Are our conflict management styles in sync? Are the values that matter to me that I want to see highlighted in my being and how people perceive me, is that reflected by this person? Do they see me in this way? Are they looking for something similar? Now, my husband and I have now been together for 9 years, and I'm still very much head over heels in love with him. I still think he's physically beautiful and stunning, and touching him is an out-of-body experience most of the time. But I recognize that what makes it sustainable is the fact that we are so compatible in such a myriad of ways. And having the time to discern that before the chemical rush can be really beneficial. I remember somebody I briefly dated before my husband, just shortly before. We met, him walking out of the gym, me walking into it, had a brief conversation, and then we ended up screwing on our first date. And I was super into him, but a few weeks went by and I started to realize, like, oh, I don't feel good when I'm with this person. I don't feel like I'm in my best self. I actually physically feel unwell. And it took several weeks of back and forth for me sitting with those emotions before I realized, like, oh, this isn't the right person for me. They're lovely. They're, blessings to them, sending you all my well wishes, but they're just not the right person for me. Had I not boinged to this person on the first date, I might have been able to realize that a little bit quicker and save both him and I some heartache. But I would also be remiss to not mention that sex means different things to different people, and where you are on your journey will mean sex means something different for you. Because, for example, the first guy I ever got naked with, I lost my shit with him. For like 6 years, I could cry if I walked near his apartment or thought about him. And we went on 3 dates, nothing significant happened, but where I was in my journey, that was a really profound experience. And so if you are somebody who hasn't had a lot of sexual activity, it's a really intensely bonding experience, which can be both good and challenging. Good because it will really connect you with this person in a meaningful way. But if it's not the right person for you, if it's somebody who you don't have a lot of compatibility with, or you're not looking to grow in the same ways, or you don't value the same things, that can make it a really difficult thing to then disengage from over time. Conversely, and actually I think this will probably be the topic of next week's video of, is there such a thing as having too many sexual partners? If you're somebody who's had a lot of sex might not be a tremendously bonding experience for you, in which case, great, it makes it lower stakes to get sexually engaged with this person, but it also means it may be a little more challenging to find that deep, meaningful sexual connection with that individual that feels lasting, that feels like you are continually turned on by this person moving forward when you're used to having a plethora of individuals. That's a very deep and nuanced topic that I want to give adequate time, so I'm going to save that and table it for next week's video. At the end of the day, it's this idea that there's nothing ever inherently right or wrong. It comes down to perspective, where you are and how you feel about it. So if you feel really good about this individual and you're seeing all green lights and you really feel like this is meant to be and I've got my wits about me and this makes sense, sure, by all means. If you are wanting to take more time to get to know this person and see how you really feel before the added chemical elements start coming into play, then maybe waiting a little bit makes sense for you. But my lasting message for this video really should be this idea for ourselves and for the people we interact with, to let go of judgment. That we are all doing the best we can with what we've been given at this time. We're not going to behave perfectly. We're not going to be mistake-free. We're all going to do things that we look back on in 5 years and say, whew, I am glad I don't make those same choices again. But that's part of living. It's part of growing, and we are always shifting and changing and developing. And so to have patience and have grace and forgiveness and love and compassion for ourselves and for one another. So for whomever asked me, sex on a first date, yay or nay? I hope this was useful for you. Thank you so much for your time. If you think this video has value, please share it with somebody else. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. Those things really help our channel. If you love the work I do, feel free to support me on Patreon, and you can always reach out for one-on-one coaching support through my website, ecstaticself.com. Thank you so much. I'm Kaelan. Love and blessings to you.